Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deepbluerenegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deepbluerenegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 129. Today is Monday, April 4th, 2016, and I'm glad you could join me today. I thought I hit record. I didn't hit record. I don't know if I can blame this. It's after work. I exercised. I haven't showered yet. Like, this is super fresh. But I got pretty far into the podcast before looking down to the time and then seeing there was no time. Sadness. So, I'm going to begin again with more wine. So, welcome. I didn't get to the stash position part. I'm pretty glad. But I did get through explaining all of the classes I took with Abby Frankenmuth this weekend, and that won't be as fresh anymore. I'm sorry. I think I figured out how to explain it because I'm showing a bunch of samples. Honestly, it'd probably be easier to wait to show the samples from the one class until I've two-plied it together and gotten off the bobbin. But hey, such is life. So, we'll go back to the start. I am knitting a citron with crescent shaping, using my Three Waters Farm handspun that I've recently finished. This is in the Mirror Lake colorway, and it's singles, very, very fine singles. And this is how far I am. So I am getting ready to start the 7th section of ruching. So this is my cast on edge here, and this is where I am now. I managed actually to get a pretty decent amount done this week, and of course it was a little bit longer. I think I was still in the middle of the yellow by the end of Fiberfest, and I managed to get a little bit more done on the time I probably would have normally recorded. But I am just about ready to start the next ridiculous increase section. So I did weigh my yarn earlier, and I'm about 40 grams in, and I have about 80 grams to go. So I am 1/3 of the way done with the shawl, so that wasn't totally insane. Isn't the case where I'm just 1/10 of the way through the shawl, and it's just because the ball seems so big still, but it really is. Well, if this was a 100-gram ball, then I would have only been 20 grams in, but it's a 2-ouncer, so that's probably 150, 120, something like that. So I am farther than I thought I was. I'm not necessarily anal retentive enough to actually figure. I didn't weigh it before I started or finished or all that other funny stuff. But doing the crescent shaping, it is growing. I just moved the marker to the next spot. And this has been my primary carry-around knitting. It was really nice mindless knitting. And it's been carrying along nicely. So I finally got into a green section because it seemed like that was what it had been missing so far. And I think there's more green throughout. It just seemed like I was in a stint where there was very little green. And I've actually been keeping this in my silky project bag, so this is satin lined, because for some reason when I have it in a cotton bag, it sticks, so, and that's unacceptable to me, so that is the story there. And then what I have in my circuit bag is my simple skip rope socks, so I'll stop calling them simple spite socks because it seems like they're going a lot better now. So this is the first sock, and I do know I have enough yarn for this, and this is my second sock. So I have a couple of rows into the ribbing on this. I'm going to be putting 2 inches on, so this will require a little bit more work, but it is going now. So it has started. It is living in my purse. It will get worked on as the mood strikes. but it's on its way now. So last week it wasn't cast on. I managed to get it onto the needles, which is nice. In terms of spinning, I have 2 projects going right now. The one you have seen before, and that is my silk hankies. So these are silk hankies from Friends and Fiber. It was a prize I won in Tour de Fleece. And I'm starting to get a pretty decent collection of singles on there. I'm definitely, what would it be? An ounce is about 30 grams. So I am down to half an ounce left to go on this ply. So 1.5 ounces per ply here. So here's the Ma Boudoir. I probably have 6 more hankies to go on this before I run out, and that's almost 3 grams, a bit less than 3 though. And sort of the case where pulling it in and out of the bag all the time probably isn't the best for it. And then I have 8 of this left still, so a decent amount of this. And what I'm going to be doing is actually, when I run out of the Renaissance, I'll be just spinning this until it's gone, and that'll just be leftovers for plying and what have you, because one of them is going to be longer than the other. Looks like I just ejected some fiber. So this is coming along. What I normally have been doing is prepping up 3 hankies at a time and going through and spinning them, and it takes about an hour to spin through, what is it, an hour to spin through 3 hankies, maybe 45 minutes if I'm on the ball, but so definitely a longer project, but not the end of the world. It is silk. It's a pain to draft. I found out in my class that silk hankies is more an instance of, yeah, you can totally spin that, instead of a normal way you would prep the fiber. Let's just say there isn't a tradition that involves spinning the wada. Which now makes me feel a little bit better about the awful drafting process. So, the other thing I have is new, and this is my fiber optic. This is also a part of my spin the bin, because the silk hankies were February, this is March, it's April. I need to get cracking on my spin the bin, so I'm basically sort of going through reverse joyful order right now. So this is my fiber optic in the Bitter Lime to Rose. And I already had these sort of balled up so I could show you the remaining colorway. So I'm going from purple to this bright green, and it passes through dark blue and turquoise on the way. And then I have its sister, which is a somewhat different color. I'm not sure why. I ended up getting this in a D-stash, so it could just be that one of them was in the sun and one of them wasn't. But this part, on my wheel it's pink, on this it's definitely a burgundy. I'm thinking it's going to be pretty decent character just plying the two together. But this is the other braid I had, which is standing to the ready. I don't know why. I think I had both because they were both in the plastic bag. But fiber optic, Bitter Lime to Rose, and she has some really, really gorgeous fibers. So 80% merino, 20% silk. It has a special place in my heart. It's the fiber I learned how to draft on. And that was probably before the time of the podcast, but this was the hat that I made out of Kimber's yarn. It was a Knit Girl spin along back when I first started to spin. So I figured out how to draft on this. It was awesome. Yeah, no, this was before the podcast, but it is too hot up here to wear a hat. Oh, silliness. So, those are my spinning projects. But I do have more spinning to show you. I'll probably end up breezing through it a bit more quickly. I ended up taking 2 spinning classes this weekend with Abby Frankemont. I took one Friday morning, which was about, it was called Prep Matters. And basically the thesis statement of the class is, depending on the type of fiber, you probably need a different type of prep, being able to identify what prep you have, identify whether or not you want to prep something one way versus the other way, and basically giving you a sense for, do you even need to prep your fiber? Given a giant pile of fiber, combing versus carding, and all of that other fun stuff. And so what we ended up doing was we ended up spinning a wide variety of things. So I have the meat sheep fleece, I have the milk sheep fleece, so the milk sheep roving, the meat sheep roving, the milk sheep fleece, linen and silk noil. This orange stuff in here is silk hankies. What's underneath this is camel. What's over here, somewhere, maybe, or is it over here? I don't know. Somewhere in here is some alpaca, which, oh, this one's so lovely. And then deep, deep within is the Falkland comb top we started with. So all sorts of different things to try. Really highlighted how important it was, or how different every type was, and what they were good for and what they were bad for. But Abby really has a lot of fun giving people the meat sheep. Oh my gosh. This crap is horrible. I'll be I could long draw on it like nobody's business, but it was horrible. Strangely akin to the chocolate Shetland fleece, actually. Oh, silliness. And while this milk sheep looks a lot of fun, it doesn't feel very good. So it also long drawed like nobody's business. So I was having a lot of fun playing with long draw because I don't normally choose fiber that has that preparation. So is the case where it was interesting to have a chance to play around with it, because it wasn't my normal MO. So I also have a couple of homework pieces. Okay, so I have 2 different pieces of roving. This one is Buffalo Down, 100%, which is roving. I then also have 50/50 Merino Buffalo here. Also roving, I believe. A little bit harder to tell with this one. And then I was having fun playing with people, because I pulled this out and had them feel it and compared it to some of the luxury buffalo stuff. And this is ridiculously totally soft. And this is actually cotton top, so it's colored cotton. So this will be interesting to spin. I might actually spin this on a spindle instead of on the wheel, but really, really interesting. Apparently it's really hard to get this. Cotton doesn't tend to be prepared this way anymore, or with this quality or that sort of thing. So apparently it will change color if I boil it. I don't know. It seems like a fun experiment, and there's a pretty decent amount of fiber there in order to try it out. So a couple more examples of different things. She didn't like us enough to give us caveat. Let's sigh. So, oh well, such is life. The other class I took was spinning for projects. And a lot of it seemed to be sort of working through the thought process of, what was it? Knowing what you have, knowing how you'd want to spin it, sampling like a mad fiend, and then, what is it? And then being able to have a big enough sample in order to knit a swatch. And so it was the case where I was hoping it would be more technical and have more on the, whatever, more quantitative side of spinning, but it really wasn't necessarily that sort of class. Abby is definitely a much more intuitive spinner, which I feel that I'm an intuitive spinner, but I was interested to sort of learn something new. But oh well, such is life. But I ended up sampling like a mad fool. So we ended up making a ton of samples in class as we were going through trying to figure out what it is we wanted to learn. So here is once more the domestic brown carded sliver, and I made all sorts of ridiculous samples out of this. So I have my single, which is just about falling apart. I have my 2-ply, which is ridiculously, like, my 2-ply sample is just ridiculously lumpy. When I got to the 3-ply, it was starting to not look like a hot mess. But the 4-ply, oh, you know how I feel about 4-ply, was the point at which it really did seem to even out and make sense. And there's a giant pigtail in there. But I also made slightly crazy samples of 5-ply, and I made a 6-ply sample because I really didn't know what to do with this guy. Now the 6-ply is just sort of ridiculous, but really bulky, really lofty, really springy yarn. So it really showed off what you could do with long draw really, really well. And I don't know if it'd be the case where it would be worth it, say for example, to comb something to basically clean it and get all the crap out, and then card it to get this crazy, lofty, springy wool. Well, I guess my fleece is probably on the longer side anyway, so I probably would want to comb it anyways. Just comb all the things. Like, don't worry, guys. I haven't forgotten about it. But this was probably really striking in terms of getting to a point where this was all just the same singles, and I just pulled armloads off and let it ply on itself. But there reaches a point at which you're making pretty decent yarn with it, even though it's crap wool. So, and then we worked a little bit actually on doing long draw on top, which was sort of ridiculously underspun for me. But, yeah, so my single is just about, which one is my sample of single? Can't even tell at this point. So I'm assuming that this guy is my sample of single, and it is just about falling apart. My 2-ply is decent, but sort of loosely plied. My 3-ply is probably what looks the best in this one, but I also have a 4-ply sample as well. So it's just the case of you take a chunk of fiber this big, you spin samples like a mad fool, and then you can make an informed decision about what is actually appropriate for how you're spinning the singles, like what sort of yarn you want to make. And so this is my short forward draw samples. So my single sort of plied up on itself and was falling apart. My 2-ply looks pretty lovely on this, a nice sort of loose guy there. The 3-ply is also pretty good, but the 4-ply also does look pretty fantastic and also has a giant pigtail on it. But so it's just the case where it was very interesting to have sort of a know yourself moment with these are the singles, your default spinning, what structure of yarn looks good in them. And then you can make an informed decision from there about what sort of project you want to make. Like maybe the gauge you want is actually on the 2-ply instead of the 3-ply or something like that. So, and then my homework assignment for the class is I have some Corriedale from Spunky Eclectic. So natural, I think it has natural blips and then this magenta color. And so I'm going to create samples and then make after I decide what structure of yarn I want, spin enough singles to knit a swatch. And so so this is about an ounce of Corriedale there. And so the thought process being going through the whole entire process of the class. Of starting with fiber, figuring out what you want to do with the fiber, and then making a big enough sample. And basically the thought process is that figuring out what you want to spin for a project is engineering yarn. I'm totally behind engineering, if you know what I mean. So this is a way of prototyping without a lot of material waste so that you really love the project you make. And I'm not going to go so far as to buy 8 ounces of fiber in order to make a 4-ounce project. But that I'm definitely going to be a lot more willing to sample, because I have a ton of hand sewn scraps. I could have sampled, if you know what I mean, in order to figure out what it was that I wanted to do with it, as opposed to just looking at the braid of fiber and being like, what does this want to be? And then doing my default, if you know what I mean. So, very interesting to take a class with Abby. Definitely the case where she is, knows her stuff and has challenged every single convention and assumption she comes across. So, she tries it and figures out whether it is true or false, like physics or common practice, and goes from there. So I really appreciate that, her straightforward manner, and she's a techie person as well, so she's a full-time spinning teacher now, but she's also a techie, so I could appreciate her geekery. So very, very cool. I think she ends up coming every 2 years to Fiberfest, so we'll see whether or not another class comes around which has a topic of interest to me. Her other classes were not, what was it? So she had like a weaving one, she had a getting your reel tuned in, and she had one that was, what was it? It was actually a weaving class. I'm like, weaving, whatever. But I feel I have my wheel really well set up for me and know how to make all the changes to it, so it didn't really make sense to take the other classes, because I consider a pretty good spindler, so. And I got her to sign the book, so. Did I even show you guys that I got that book? Well, whatever. So I ended up getting Respect the Spindle. I had borrowed it from Anna. I read it all and was internalizing it and made it, or it ended up convincing me that I would like to take a class from Abby. So I'm glad I finally had the opportunity. Though next year I won't take 2 classes, because that was a bit too much. I'd sort of, what was it? I think my main learning was that next year for Fiberfest, the evening, maybe running through the market before it closes, and then hanging out and knitting Friday night in the hotel lobby, and then all day Saturday would be plenty of Fiberfest. It was I sort of wanted to find some people and say goodbye to them in the market, but I realized I was going to spend money in the market if I went back in. And I did not have anyone who was there to drag me out of the market. Be like, no, no, no. So it was the case where I ended up splitting up my shopping into 2 days. I ended up winning 2 prizes. I won 1 prize for being in a class, and I won another prize because I entered into the spin-along. Because this was yarn that I bought this was fiber that I bought at Fiber Fest last year, which I spun in the time frame of the spin-along. And then I accidentally found out that it all worked out. So this was worth, or I turned my 8 ounces of wool into 8 ounces of wool! I ended up winning a door prize from Butterfly Girl Designs, and she had these tubes of wool from Fractious Fibers. And so this is the 3 feet of sheep in Rainbow at Twilight. So it goes from a light purple to a sort of magenta-y pink in a gradient sort of fashion. I think they're all 11 pieces, I believe. And I figured this is just a useful sort of thing to have in stash. And it's BFL, and I really enjoy spinning with BFL. It's very satisfying. So I'm not entirely sure what this is going to become. I've seen some really cool rainbow progression things, which makes me sort of curious about that. But we'll see what this ends up becoming. And it's sort of designed in such a way where you could have everything be end-to-end in some sort of crazy cowl thing. But I just thought it was really cool. And pretty much everything in our booth had sparkle, and this was one of the few things that didn't. I think I've concluded I'm not a sparkle girl. Yeah. Oh. So, and then I ended up using my other door prize was, I think I actually, yeah, no, that's an interesting point. So my prize for the spin-along was actually $20 off, and what I decided to do with it was, what was it? I ended up getting a spindle from K-Sale Woodworks. So, like, Ken and his wife Carol hang out in the booth. I'm sure you've heard this from Round the Twist. But this is sort of a sampling of the sorts of pretties that he has, and this is a picture of him. But this is, what is it? So this is the really pretty sort of thing. And what sold me on this particular spindle was that it was actually totally convertible. So this is the head. It is inlay polymer clay. Let's see. We'll read the stats on it. So the whirl is walnut. The finials are purple heart. So finial pieces. And then the shafts are teak. So you end up getting, but it's totally reconfigurable. So what sold me on it was that this is a drop spindle and a supported spindle. And depending on which end you end up screwing into your little shaft, you can pick. So, and then the shafts of these are actually designed in such a way where they have a little ridge on them so that you can actually tie your little loop onto them. And so his shtick has always been that you have 3 shafts, so then you can use the same whirl on your project and then just leave your singles on there, so you don't need to wind your singles off in order to continue spinning. But the fact that this is a supported spindle and I do not own a supported spindle was what made me go. So it's called a super combo, and I thumbed through all of them until I found the prettiest one to me. And I ended up using my $20 off on it in order to get a great price. So those were what I picked up on my first day in the market, was the prize and then this, and sort of getting a chance to wander through and figure that out. And I'm with you guys. I was definitely much more interested in tools, and I accidentally got some fiber, no big deal. And then there was the second day in the market. So this was the case where my friend Lindsay ended up meeting up with me, and she needed some enabling, and I was happy to provide enabling. And then when I was done enabling Lindsay, then Shannon ended up joining on, and then Shannon and Lindsay enabled me. But they made sure that I was very close to falling off the cliff before they gently went. So I said I needed 2 things. I needed a shawl pin, and I needed a what was it? And I wanted a bat. I didn't need a bat. I just wanted a bat. We're having a crazy yarn spin along and completely twisted and arbitrary, and I already had plans for my other bat that I have. So I was looking for those 2 things, and I ended up wandering all of the places that sold shawl pins or bats in order to figure out the perfect thing. So, in Little Monkey Stitch and Spin, ended up finding these really cute pins. So they're effectively safety pins. I think they were actually marketed as stitch marker holders, but isn't this like the most perfect shawl pin ever? Like, all the pieces are hooked together, you can thread your shawl through, hold it in place, it looks pretty with the little spirals, and the only way you're going to lose this is if the whole thing falls out. Because there were other shawl sticks around, but this was one where you knew when you put it in, it wasn't going to work its way out, it was going to stay there. And was probably the most practical shawl pin in the market. So I was really glad to have found that. And then in Dying Dreams, I managed to find a bat that just spoke to me. So this is really reasonably priced, $20, come on, for a 3-ounce bat, 85 grams. And it is superwash wool, nylon, and milk. So the milk is what is giving it that slinky, or that slinky shininess. But for the most part, it is a pretty decent amount of wool. And so it is whites and browns and sort of a teal and then sort of a dusky blue. I think the colors are actually coming out fairly well on this. So I figured that, and it's a very orangey brown as well. So the thought process would be that I would do some core spinning with this. So pick some fingering weight from my yarn as the core and then core spin this onto something to sort of keep the colors nice and crazy. And it'll make a really fun and floofy yarn the way that it is. So I was really happy with that. And when I was wandering around the market on Friday, I definitely really liked the look of Dawn's bats. So, and her mother was the one who was always manning the booth, so she was like, "There's some nice stuff here." But she didn't knit or spin, so. And then you would think that it would be done. But I remembered something. I remembered that I needed wool wash. I'm almost out of wool wash. So we ended up visiting the Bijou Basin, and they have their Allure. So I sniffed all of their flavors and decided that scents, and decided that the Woodland Mist was about right. So I now have some more no rinse wool wash, and ended up talking with the proprietor for a bit about the differences between them all and what you should be doing and that sort of thing. I also ended up getting a sample in my goodie bag of the Kubera wash. So this has tea tree, vanillin, and flesh in the, what is it? So they're looking for 1 cap per thing, and you can actually do it. So this is rinse optional. So I haven't had a chance to try this before. I guess I could sniff it too. So we'll see. Apparently some people might have problems with tea tree oil, so we'll see how it goes. Go from there. Certainly we'll have a chance to use this soon, because I definitely need to wash some socks. But, oh, I guess there was one more thing that automatically came in a bag. So I ended up getting a skein of Ultra Alpaca Chunky. Now, what do you do with chunky alpaca in Texas? It's actually 50-50 merino alpaca, but oh well. I'm sort of tempted to actually over-dye it and see what happens. So 100 grams, 131 yards, so pretty thick stuff. But alpaca, I love alpaca. It's too warm, but I love it. So, yeah. But, I had an unplanned sweater quantity. That was the point that I was trying to get to. So I walked into a Thing for Strings booth, and imagine for a moment that you were looking at my stash over here, and you walk into a booth that is like my stash, that is all super saturated, gorgeous jewel tones. And she was actually one of the few people who had sweater quantities and had, what was it? Sport weight yarn. So that's what got me. I don't have sport weight yarn. I don't have a sport weight sweater quantity. It is hot in Texas. I do not want DK weight sweaters. I do not want worsted weight sweaters. I want light sweaters. So I was sold. I really wanted to get her colors. The color is Blue Stocking. I nearly cleaned her out of the blue, not quite. And everything was all in the same lot, which was awesome. And I ended up getting 5. So, it is a very gorgeous tonal blue with sort of a black wash on it, and I love myself some blue. So it went. Shortly thereafter, the fraud protection thing came up on my credit card as I was sitting outside eating nachos, and Lindsay was a good friend, and she kept me from the wool market for the rest of the day. So the plan is for the Thing for String to do a rolling rock, which is another baby cocktails design. So really cute Henley style front and then lace panel in the back. And that I checked, I'm trying to figure out which one would be my size, and it turned out I needed to get 5 skeins no matter what, so that's what I did. So yay, sweater quantity. But then I couldn't go back into the wool market. So even though I could have went back into the wool market on Sunday after my class, I would have picked up a braid of fiber from Fiber Optic. I would have gotten some Road to China Light. maybe would have gotten some more stuff from Bijou Basin, because I really love how that shawl knit up, and I have more. So likely what this means is that if last Fiberfest is anything to tell, I did not end up buying things from the same people I bought from Fiberfest before. So Mustache was there, Alicia Goes Around was there, Fiber Optic was there. But that if they should return to Fiberfest, that will probably be what I'm listing for next, was that which got away this time. But that's true. Like, what was it? I think it was actually at Stitches, Texas, I had the lovely conversation with Ken and decided that it was, like, beautiful stuff, good craftsmanship, nice person, really, really easy to decide to buy something from him. So, you see how it goes. But I wasn't intending to buy sweater, but it was just so pretty. And I was seriously thinking about picking up more from that booth as well, because so much of it was my color sense. And it's really great to find someone where you can pet and fondle the pretties who has your color sense. So there was a colorway that was like blues and purples. I was like, slays me! I was trying to figure out a way to do the Rolling Rock in it, and it just wasn't gonna go. So, oh well, that would have been a little bit too, I think, dedicated for a sweater, but yeah, such is life. So, with that was my, well, what was it? I can probably add a little bit to my Fiberfest experience. So, we ended up doing normal hanging out around the convention center, people watching, trying new food, that sort of thing. Hilarious moment where I was intending to meet someone. Turns out I met her last year. She was already hanging out in the hotel lobby. I was like, wait a second, I wanted to meet Debbie. That's Debbie! But I didn't say that at the time. I was playing it cool. I was like, imagine that. We actually already know each other and we're hanging out now, that's cool. And then at the podcaster meetup, Debbie was like, oh my gosh, you are Molly! Because apparently, she doesn't, like me, stalk people by reading their name tag. So, we all had our name tags, which is how I knew that Debbie was, DeFelis. So I was like, okay, Deepbluerenegade's on the badge. If she notices it, whatever, no big deal. We succeeded in hanging out. And she ended up joining Lindsay and me for dinners Saturday night as well. So we had a crazy good time hanging out in the lobby Friday night, and then we repeated it again for Saturday night. So it is a tremendous amount of fun. It makes me a little bit sad that some of these people can't be in my regular knit group because they're from farther away. We were also trying very hard to recruit for the knit group as well. It'd be like, you are cool, you need to hang out with us, even though it's far. for some of the people who are local in the Metroplex. So, yeah. But I ran into like some SSKers and all sorts of other fun things. So, it was cool. It was really exciting, but I probably needed like one less day of it, if that makes any sense, because I am totally tired right now. Wait. Excuse me. It's also allergy season and it's just miserable. But, so I probably just need one less day of it because I didn't have enough happy introvert time this weekend. Not nearly enough. So, oh well, such is life. Everyone was excited about fiber and knitting and spinning and all the other stuff, so it wasn't a big deal. But I'm not sure if a similar sort of thing will happen for Stitches, Texas. Whether or not we'll just creep around in the hotel lobby where most of the people are staying. It's probably a decent idea. I'm not sure where the official hotel for Stitches, Texas is, or if it's the Marriott as well. But Laughed until I cried. Good. I think I still had more voice than I had last year, though, so yeah, whatever. So that's the story there. It was a lot of fun. It was a very fantastic way to spend a birthday weekend, yeah. But spending Savant basically comes from, well, one of the conversations, so. Normally you put a different word in front of Savant, but eh. So, that is the story there. So, I should be able to record next week on the usual day, I'm pretty sure. That will be 4 plus 7 is 11, so that'll be the 10th. And I look forward to talking to you guys then. So, take care, guys. Bye-bye.